Out of nowhere, by some power you don't have control over, you are now in a space with two buttons in front of you and compelled to pick one. You can make a choice, limited by what is in front of you, but what will that be? The first button says, if more than half of humanity picks this, everyone will live. While the second button says, if you pick this, you won't be killed. What button would you press, knowing that your vote is private and everyone else is also subject to it? Hello people, this is Purple and welcome back to the channel. Today we are here for a variety video, yeah, whatever, I didn't upload for a while and so I kind of wanted to make something different to make it up. And I'm trying to make something that makes sense and it's not bad, Over the last while, there have been a lot of things going on social media, especially the places where I've been. Some of them about serious topics, some of them about stuff that's more like a joke, kind of like this one. And that's why I decided to make this video on this channel and another video about one of these serious topics on another channel. You can go check it out. Oh, over it. But like over here somewhere, there's probably a link to that video on my other channel. I hope that video, I try to make that video in a way that makes sense and that's positive for like the whole discussion, but like if it doesn't come off like that, please tell me, I'll try to do better. But yeah, since this channel here is more for like unserious stuff, that's why we're here. Yeah, because like it was either this or talking about people who are thinking of nuking a boat because there's some people who are sick in it. Yeah, that has also happened. So, as the intro might have shown you already, we are here for the red and blue button thought experiment. Now, before we go into like why I pick one side and what side I pick and the justifications for my side to be the best side, let's talk about like the history of this thing, this thought experiment. This specific bit of discussion has been mostly around a tweet from the 24th, I think, of April 2026, in which an account named Tim Urban with this made this post. This same type of hypothetical has existed in many forms throughout the years. It has been posted to Reddit, it has been posted to Twitter in different ways. It's not really new. It's just new in the way that it gained a lot of traction and people decided to talk about it and people made it into something that you can say the premise of the thought experiment in a slightly different way to get very different results and to get people to think about it in a very different way. I try to maintain my composure and talk about it in the way that I think the author intended, in my own words, in that same way. But again, if you think that I'm wrong, you just fucking tell me. Interaction is always good. However, the earliest depiction of this specific experiment that I could find was this Reddit post from a few years ago. I found this through fucking Know Your Meme, so it's definitely not the best source. There's probably a lot of versions of this thought experiment that have existed for way longer that I'm just not familiar with, and I'm honestly not going to spend hours going through the internet just to find that, because again, there's definitely older versions of this. That's definitely not the first time that this specific thought experiment was put into words. But yeah, I decided to make this video because it's clickbaity as fuck. People are doing it online, and also I feel like a lot of the people who are talking about it are just using it as a way to make themselves look better than they are and make others look worse. I think that's childish and stuff, so I would definitely never do that, because I am not only a better person morally than everyone, I am smarter. And so I will reach the obvious and logical conclusion while still being the best person. This is definitely not a joke, by the way. So yeah, everyone who doesn't think like me is definitely an inferior intellectual being as well as a bad person. That's definitely what I believe, by the way. Again, if it's not obvious, I'm joking. I'm just joshing around. I hope that was understandable. Fuck, the lighting here is actually bad. I need to move somewhere else. So, long story short, I would pick blue. And when I say I would pick blue, I'm saying this for two main reasons. One, that was my first instinct when I first heard of like the thought experiment. I was like, oh yeah, if half of the people pick blue, everyone wins. That's like easy. Before I even like thought about it at all, that was my first instinct. And I believe a lot of people, probably a majority of people, will have the same instinct as me as soon as they heard like what the question was. And the second reason is that when I take like my thought process to its logical conclusions, I think that blue ends up being the most correct, like the optimal solution. I don't think everyone will agree on that. I think a lot of people will end up thinking only to a certain point of what I think is appropriate, and like others will maybe think more deeply about it than I do, and that's the reason why they'll reach a different conclusion. But like from my point of view, I think that the most people who will end up making a choice will end up making a choice of blue, and that is part of why I think that's the right answer. And yeah, now I don't want to just talk about my own positions and why I chose like this position. I will like talk about my thought process, and in the way of talking about my thought process, I will talk about how I think other people think, and like I will be pushing my smooth ass brain to its limits. So if you see fucking smoke getting out of my fucking ears, just know that that's, yeah, I'm overclocking my shit. And like I don't think I'm like an authority on anything. Okay, I'm just doing this for fun, and I'm just like I kind of think that I'm an overthinker, and as an overthinker, I think that I'm qualified, you know. And so I think that there are multiple levels of thought to this experiment, and that you can like stop your thought at multiple points and still make some level of sense, or even not make sense but still like have a valid position, you know. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is think about how people would think and get my conclusion not only from how other people would think, but like from what I think would happen if each thing happened, you know. That's kind of what I actually did to get to my conclusion, and like why I'm like confident in my own choice. Now online, some people are changing the way that the thought experiment is written, and I think that's valid to some level, but that's only making it so that you are writing it in a way that like favors your own side. I've tried to like keep myself like maintain neutrality when it comes to that, and like to the way I'm thinking about stuff. But yeah, I know that in some ways I'm definitely putting my bias into the way that I'm talking about stuff, and that's kind of inevitable. Everyone who is talking about this is doing it, and I just want like to make it clear that I'm not like trying to put anyone down. I'm just trying to like make my point known in a way. Talk about how I think that like the logical conclusion is my side. But yeah, everyone is doing that. Some of the people who are rewarding this are doing so because like the tweet that started this discussion had an everyone in it, and like everyone includes children and elderly, but it also includes people who might be disabled in a way that would prevent them from choosing a button or hitting the button even if they are capable of making the choice. And as such, like I don't really care too much if you are including those people or if you are excluding them and making it so it's only able-bodied and able-minded people that can do this. I think it's a little bit dark here. I'll try to get me some light. Okay. Either way, I don't think that like changes my final result and what I think makes sense, you know? Now, like, why do people choose something? People choose something in this like experiment. They make specific choices for a few reasons. Let's talk about it. People make choices because one, they have previous experiences and they are using that to inform their own choices. Two, they have biases, and those biases can be from listening to other people talk about their own experiences. It can also be from hearing how society moves, how other people act, seeing how stuff happens within society. All of that brings biases to how you act and who you are, your personality and stuff like that. And those personality traits can change how you would make your choice. Like, not only does it change the way that you think about things, but it also changes how far you're willing to think, and like if you would make an impulsive decision or not. Let's just go into what I think the levels of thought that people would do in this experiment are. So first, let's talk about level -1. This is people who are just impulsive. They get to the room or the space or whatever the fuck where the buttons are. They didn't even listen or read or whatever it is about the proposal. They simply hit their favorite color and that's it. It's not a lot of people. It's probably a small sliver, like a couple thousand of the entire humanity if we are going by the people who are mentally able and physically able. But like, still, that's some people who are doing that. And again, only half of those would be pressing each button, because a favorite color, that's pretty much like functionally random. Now let's talk about like layer 0 of thought. This is like the first instincts that you have when you get there. There are some people who are definitely going to be a little bit impulsive, but like they at least wait to understand what the questions are, and they're like, oh yeah, like this side, if the majority votes this, everyone gets to live, blue button. Or this side, oh yeah, if I eat this I don't die, red button. And yeah, that's a valid choice. It's simple, it's not very thought out, but some people, like on this one, it doesn't really matter if you're excluding like young people and old people and disabled or differently able people. You are definitely going to get a lot of people who are just hitting each of the buttons. On this level, I think like no one is making a profound choice, and I would like to think that more people press blue, like on a 3-to-1 scale, but like it doesn't really matter. It just matters that a lot of people are going to be pressing both buttons, and at this point there is millions of people on both sides. Like at the very least, millions of people will die if red wins by this point, by this like low thought. And like I'm saying, this is a small sliver of humanity, like not in the billions, definitely. This is like probably just in the 100 millions maybe, but like there's already a lot of people in this. Then we have what I could call level 1 of like thought, and this is the people who can kind of like get to the conclusion that, oh, if everyone votes for the same thing, no one dies. And like, yes, however, the people that get to this point of thought are not also overthinking what other people would be thinking, and so they are not really aware of what other people would be voting like, you know. And so this is where you get people who are like, oh yeah, everyone who votes, like if everyone votes for the same thing, we can just all live. And that's like definitely a good place to be, not gonna lie, but like it's not really profound. And so this is where people would start using more thoughts, more heuristics and stuff to like get to their conclusions. And this, like, by speaking of heuristics, we have stuff like game theory, in which you could make a little table in which you say stuff like, if I vote red and red wins, nothing happens, or at least I survive. If I vote red and blue wins, nothing happens, everybody survives. If I vote blue and blue wins, I'm probably mixing stuff up, but whatever. If I vote blue and blue wins, nothing happens, everyone lives. And if I vote blue and red wins, I die. That's the level of death that a lot of people are going in this thing, and I think this specific one, where a large chunk of the population would end up, I think, but I don't think it would be a majority. I think that the majority of the people who get to this point would be picking red. And that's not to say that you cannot use your own logic when you get here to like pick blue, because again, I still think that if you get to this point and you're like, yeah, blue is kind of a trap, you know, but if it is a trap, that means people are going to be picking it, and if people are going to be picking it, I might as well join them so we break the trap, you know. And that's kind of on the same level as like game theory stuff. Now, what I think the people who think only to this point are missing is thinking of the future. They are very much just living in the present and not thinking of the future. And I am someone who does that a lot, who like doesn't think about the what tomorrow will be like, who just lives in the present and sometimes even in the past. But somehow I was able to like think, oh, there are things that you can actually fucking think about and do, and conclusions about what should be done because of what will happen the next day. And this is kind of where I get to like level 2. People aren't thinking just about the direct circumstances, the direct results of the vote. They are thinking about what those results mean for the future. And that's kind of where I am, and that's kind of why I picked blue, by the way. When I get to this point, first, you probably are thinking about how others are voting. For you to actually be thinking about the future and stuff, you actually need to like understand how others will be voting and understand like what actually will be happening if whatever happens. So you're probably doing your own version of this game theory thing in your head that probably looks a little bit more like this one. So you see what I'm saying in the little graph thing that I'm showing you? Yeah. Societal collapse. That's kind of what I'm seeing if red wins in any of the things. And like that's kind of why I'm choosing blue. And sure, you can say, oh, but like if you pick red, you can at least rebuild, and if you pick blue and you die, you can't do anything else. Yeah, but I'm not having to deal with the collapsed society, you know? I think in a way that's an easy way out. And like when we get to this fucking thing, the only path that makes sense is the path that makes it so that blue wins. You have this table with these informations, and what you are getting at is pretty much, do you think that living in a post-collapse society is worth it? Or do you want to go for the only option that actually brings normalcy and makes it so that life is normal and kind of worthy of living, you know, by going blue? Because the only real option that like brings normalcy and brings the possibility of a normal tomorrow or even a tomorrow at all, in my opinion, is blue. If you pick red, that's total societal collapse. Like even if, I don't know, 5%, 10% of the population just dies from one day to the next, that's not really something you can just fix. And don't forget, it's not just the people who immediately die, it's all the people who lost their loved ones who will also die. Because some of the people who are going to be picking blue are people who have people who depend on them. Some of the people who are going to pick blue are people who their loved ones think they would have picked red and they pick blue, and then there is a loved one who feels guilty for having been complicit in someone's death. Personally, I could never be that person. I'm sorry, like I'm picking blue in part because of that, because I know that if I were to pick red, I'm probably not even waiting for the results to come out. I'm just blowing my shit smooth off, you know? Maybe a little bit too much for the YouTube censors, I don't know. But like, with this table, what result would you come to by applying your own morals and your own interests and your own thoughts to it? Because like that's also kind of what's important, you know, like you need to interpret it through your own lenses. Maybe the risk of societal collapse is too heavy for you to hold. Maybe the risk of losing your own life is too heavy to hold, and you can just make a decision based on that. And like if we go in that way, my own table looks more like this. You know, like the only real way for me to not blow my shit smooth off is by voting blue, because I am dying either way if I vote red, you know? Like personally, to me, voting blue is the only option that makes sense, because I don't deal well with guilt, and I don't think I could deal at all with the guilt of being complicit in someone's death. And as such, the only option forward for me is voting blue, even if that is risky in some ways. But not only do I think that blue is the appropriate response for this, I think that blue would win. And that's kind of why I'm going with blue, because like again, I don't think it would be understandable to go with an option that you think is going to lose. Like it only makes sense to pick red if you think red is going to win. It only makes sense to pick blue if you think blue is going to win. And maybe it is my own experiences having been raised in a certain way, in a certain place or whatever, but I think that blue would win. I think that most of the people I know in my personal life would pick blue. Maybe, yeah, that's just me having like some fantasy that everyone is nice and everyone is cool and whatever. But I do want to believe that. I do want to believe that like most people would incur a relatively small risk to help the whole, you know? And like when we are talking about this specific thought experiment, one thing that I think we also need to have in mind is that different people with different experiences will make different choices, and like there's not really a right or wrong choice. Like I'm making this video saying that my choice is the right one because of the thought process that I like got there through, but like in reality any choice can be right and any choice can be wrong because you're making the choice yourself. And like when you think about it, the only real bad person isn't the person who pushed blue because they now are making it so that other people need to push blue too, or the person who pushed red because they are co-signing the death of others. In a way, both of these people are wrong and both of these people are right. The people who truly are wrong are the ones, or the entities or whatever the fuck, who made it so everyone had to make this choice, are the ones who gave everyone just those two choices. I'm not better than anyone for picking blue. I'm not worse than anyone for picking blue. You are not better than anyone if you pick red. You are not worse than anyone if you pick red. And like one of the things that I think is making some people pick red, personally, is their own virtue signaling. And like in the discussions around this specific thing, I've heard a lot of people throw this term virtue signaling mostly towards people who are picking blue, but I think both sides are equally virtue signaling, just signaling for different virtues. Oh, a nuanced take in the last like 5 minutes of a YouTube video when the whole video was just fucking slop. Yeah, we're going there. I think that like while most of the blue button pushers, like myself, and I would say that in part I'm doing this as a type of virtue signaling, especially because I'm posting it and I'm talking about it, like the vote would be private in reality, you know, like me talking about it is something that only exists within the world in which this experiment is just an experiment and not like real. And so like, yeah, I'm virtue signaling in both ways, by the way, by making this video, because I'm virtue signaling about being morally correct by picking the self-sacrificing choice, and I'm virtue signaling about being logically correct by giving an explanation on how you can reach the same position that I did through thinking about it and having a logical understanding of what stuff is going on, you know? I kind of wanted to do that exactly like this, to show that like both sides are virtue signaling, the virtues are just different. Most of the people who are pushing the red button are talking about it in a way that is like, oh yeah, I'm pushing this button because I am the smart one, I am the one who knows stuff, and I know that we need to ignore a vital part of what makes humans humans and the evolutionary selections to which humanity has been subject to, and we need to ignore and put all of that to the side to just use dry and cold fucking logic, because being the most logical and less emotional makes you into a smarter person, and by being the smarter person you are the better person, you know? That's the position of many of the red button pushers, by the way. They might not even think about it like that, but they are definitely thinking in your feelings don't care about my facts, when in reality facts involve feelings. You cannot ignore something that is so profoundly intertwined with the human experience as feelings. You cannot divorce that from something that involves humanity, you know, like. And the other side is also true. A lot of the people who are going to say, oh, I would push blue, would never push blue. Some of these people would just push straight up red, but they are in a position through some reason or another in which they believe that saying that they would risk some personal risk to have a major like advantage to the entirety of humanity, they think that just that is a big thing in how valuable they are as a person. And so pretty much what I'm saying is that I am right and everyone else is wrong, because not only am I the avatar of virtue signaling by signaling all of the virtues, I am aware enough that I'm signaling all of the virtues. Because most of the people who are talking about this shit are not even aware of the ones that they are signaling. And a lot of the people who are pretend they aren't just to make the drama last longer and give them more views. Again, I'm not monetized here. I'm doing this shit out of love of the game, you know. But like on TikTok, there's a lot of, especially American creators, who are like doing stuff about this specific thought experiment and actual real fucking news about really important topics, like the video that I referred before that I made, as well as other topics like the current antivirus thing that's going on. And people are talking about that in such a sensationalized way that just takes the reality out of the situation, you know? And like they are making it so that their own biases are very present in the way that they are talking about stuff, but acting like they are not biased. And I think the bare minimum that someone who is talking about something like this, even if it's goofy like the fucking red and blue button thing, I think that people who are talking about it should be aware enough that like it's just a goofy thought experiment, you know, and that it is worded specifically and being used specifically by social media people to elicit rage and to elicit feelings of superiority, both like mental and emotional superiority on people. Like this thing is not even really a good thought experiment, you know? It's not really like good at that. I'm sorry, like I tried to script a video for, like to make a script for this. I had like some like things written down, and I kind of like went off script most of the recording, especially because like I got lost in some parts and my phone stops recording sometimes, and I don't have my glasses on me, so I can't fucking see. I need to like go like this sometimes. That's why there are so many fucking cuts. It's not just because I go ooh, even though I also do that a lot. Yeah. That was a very fucking weird ending for the video, but it is what it is. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, pointing the wrong way. Thank you so much for watching. It was weird to make this one. I wanted to make something a little bit different because I didn't post in a while because I didn't have internet at home. And so check this video out. Go check the other one on my other channel. And I hope you had fun. I hope you tell me your justifications for picking whatever button in the comments. And if you think that I'm like only thinking part way of what should be thought about, just tell me. Again, I think that I'm overthinking already, but like if you are an overthinking master, you are like overthinker pro max, just tell me something in the comments. I would love to hear like different perspectives on this. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.